An engineer died and went up to heaven. And when he came up to St. Peter checked the list and he said, well, your name's not on here, so you got to go down there. So the engineer went down to hell, but he was different. He was a Unity Truth student. And so immediately he started looking around to see what he had to work with, and he began to give thanks for everything that was available there. Noticing the living conditions, he went to work, and pretty soon in hell they had air conditioning, flush toilets, and escalators. One day God called down to Satan just to check in. He said, well, how's it going down there? And Satan says, we're doing great. We have air conditioning, flush toilets, and escalators. And God said, well, how'd you do that? And he said, well, we got an engineer. And God said, well, obviously, that's a mistake. Send him up here. And Satan says, well, what if I don't? And God says, well, I'll sue. And the devil said, yeah, right. Where are you going to find a lawyer? Today we're talking about potent prayers of praise and thanksgiving. Potent as in potential, powerful, strong, mighty, formidable. Catherine Ponder says, most of us have not realized the potent power that lies in prayers of praise and thanksgiving. They are miracle workers. The secret of harvesting our good is to praise God and to give thanks before what it is that we're looking for arrives, before the joy arrives. Because if we wait for something to happen before we get happy, we may be waiting indefinitely, right? And we find evidence of this in Isaiah. Isaiah obviously was channeling a message from God. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are still speaking, I will hear. So we know that we have been amply provided for. All that is left, once we realize this, is to claim our divine good. We must stake our claim in the universe. And we stake our claim with our affirmations through our affirmative prayers of praise and thanksgiving. Let's talk about how this works. Every time you think a thought or speak a word, you are calling up energy. You are energizing yourself with the potency of your ideas and your perceptions. And where does that energy go? It flows through your body. And sometimes it gets stuck. Now, it's not wrong to have a negative thought. I mean, we live in a world that is full of information and data that's coming at us all the time. And some of it's negative and some of it's positive. And much of it flows in one side of our brains and out the other. The latest celebrity divorce, food advice, cute pictures of animals, in one side and out the other. And as long as you keep all that moving, it's okay. It's the ideas that we keep, that we cling to and energize, that we want to pay attention to. We have learned in Unity that if we're going to put an idea on the replay mode, we need to select it carefully, because thoughts become things. The central point is that we keep the energy moving, including the positive energy. This is a dynamic universe that we live in. Everything is in motion all the time. Sitting there on your pew, the atoms inside your cells are moving the whole solar system, whether we're aware of it or not. Everything is in motion. We have a tendency to want to cling to things, both positive and negative. And especially when things are good for us, we don't want them to change. And we might think, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the truth is, there is a constant flow of ideas, relationships, appearances. And our choice can be to attune ourselves to the flow and to open up to new possibilities. Or we can choose to resist and allow the world and all those great ideas to just pass right by. Now, what happens when we entertain the same thought over and over again, whether it's positive or negative, we shape that energy into something. We send it in a particular direction. We cause it to manifest in our lives. As spiritual beings, we are responsible for how we respond to circumstances, events, and personalities. We may not create the events, but we can choose our responses to the events. We may not understand why people think and behave the way they do, but we can control how we respond to others. And we can learn to respond with compassion. As spiritual beings, we have the power to infuse our own situation with the energy that we choose. And we can choose to rejoice, to praise, and to give thanks before there seems to be anything to be thankful for. We can look for the good in everything. This is what Jesus did before he fed the 5,000. He gave thanks in advance that there would be enough to go around. Catherine Ponder calls this process harvesting your good. We harvest our good through prayers of praise because words that express praise, gratitude, and thankfulness release positive energies within our minds and bodies. When we release energy through praise, we're strong. It strengthens us. It gives us peace. And it gives us trust instead of fear. And we have poise and power instead of shattered nerves. Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, talked to, blessed, and praised her body continually for 2 years. And she brought forth health where there had been a diagnosis of an incurable disease. This year I will celebrate my 20th anniversary since being diagnosed with breast cancer. I returned to work 5 weeks after my surgery, mainly because I was bored out of my mind. Daytime television is... So when it was time to start chemotherapy, I asked for the last appointment on Friday afternoon so that I could put in my 40 hours at work, go get the chemo treatment, and go home and rest for the weekend. And most of those weekends, of course, I was in bed. I watched TV, read books, collected videos, slept. But I remember lying in bed one day and thinking, no matter how my body feels, I still have my thoughts. I'm in control of my thoughts, no matter what else is going on. It was a huge revelation. And so I continued. By then I had been in Unity a long time, so I was already affirming. But it just strengthened, supported that idea that in any situation, you can choose your thoughts. You can choose your responses. Someone had given me an affirmation from Myrtle Fillmore, which I adapted, and I used it throughout my 5 years of healing. Mighty, rushing streams of healing energy surge through my being, filling my soul with light and bringing me perfect peace. Do you love it? That's what I used during those 5 years. And I do, and you do too. When you find the affirmation that really works for you and you speak it out loud, you'll feel it. You'll feel the energy moving. A woman in South Carolina who had back pain for years decided to try affirmative prayer. And she began to declare, "I praise God, I am healed now. I praise God, I am healed now." Let's say that together. I praise God, I am healed now. And that's on your pink slip of paper. That's the only affirmation in chapter 4 this week. But that pink slip has all the other affirmations we've had so far from the book. So feel free to use that however you wish. So this woman who was affirming this over time, she began to notice that the soreness and the pain in her back left her. And she said she was ashamed to admit that she was surprised. But I don't think we should be ashamed when we're surprised. Be surprised. Be awestruck. Try the affirmations. Find one that energizes you. And then glory in how much better you feel. Glory in whatever results you get. And a word of advice from personal experience. As you repeat your affirmation, if you are led to change the wording, do it. I call it diddling. Diddle with the wording. And find out what works for you. Find out what energizes you. I think Catherine Ponder would agree that nothing is carved in stone. So adapt your affirmation and make it uniquely yours. The act of repeating affirmations allows us to release our spiritual power and put it to work for us. The power is already in us, but it may just be sitting there waiting for you to call it up. So praise and the giving of thanks enable us to release the spiritual power that's within us. We are all filled with this dynamic force, whether we realize it or not. And this dynamic force is constantly seeking release. When we praise, our minds, our bodies, and our affairs, the latent spiritual power within us is released. One of the several times in my life when I was between jobs, I used this Catherine Ponder affirmation. I bless this situation as the precious creation of divine bounty. I bless this situation as the precious creation of divine bounty. And that always helped me to feel that, okay, I completed that job, now there's another one coming. And they did come. A nurse in Pennsylvania wrote to Catherine Ponder saying her emotional and mental state of mind was much improved by using affirmations. Even though outwardly her life had not changed much, her life of the spirit was rich. She no longer felt at the mercy of events and personalities. She felt in control of her life. And this is exactly as it should be. Everything flows from within outward. So when you change your inner environment, improvement must follow in every other area of your life. And remember that everything responds to praise. Charles Fillmore believed that it was possible to spiritualize everything, even quote-unquote inanimate objects. Praise increases that to which it is directed. Praise draws and accumulates spiritual substance, and continual praise brings forth prosperity. Continual praise can result in healing. Continual praise can bring guidance that you desire. Praise can open a new, wonderful world to us because praise draws and accumulates positive energy and gives it power for expression. And remember to praise others. Remember the 1-minute manager and the 1-minute teacher. And one of the basic precepts in those two very simple books was, as soon as you see someone doing a good thing, praise them for it, acknowledge it. Because what you appreciate appreciates in you and in others. So you can help things to grow by giving thanks for those things. And in this way, you call into activity the qualities that you desire, and you make them stronger, more potent, and abiding. Now, I love this statement that Catherine makes in this chapter. We are surrounded by a pulsating energy, which Jesus called the kingdom of the heavens. Do you love it? We are surrounded by a pulsating energy, which Jesus called the kingdom of the heavens. And out of this universal energy, we form and make whatever we want. We can use this universal substance to form and make our world. Each of us has the spiritual power to form this pulsating, radiant substance into good in our minds, bodies, and affairs. So remember, our attitudes, our words have an effect on us. Every time we sing or pray or praise, we are carrying out the creative law. If we want to be successful and happy, we must carefully choose what we talk about and what we listen to from others. Whatever we're thinking and talking about, we're calling forth into our lives. If we want to experience health, talk about health and bless it until it becomes apparent. It is by our word of praise and blessing that we build a world of peace and blessing. At the grave of Lazarus, Jesus says, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." And everybody around him was mourning because how many days had Lazarus been dead before Jesus could get there? Anybody remember? 4 days he had been in the tomb, and still Jesus said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me." And then he said, "Lazarus, come out." And he came out of the tomb. We harvest our good through prayers of praise and thanksgiving because our divine good is waiting for us to call it up. Day by day, we experience more and more of God's rich good by harvesting it with our thoughts and our declarations of praise. The way to experience an abundance of divine good is to give thanks before there is any sign of it. The way to experience an abundance of divine good is to give thanks for everything in our life, just like that engineer did down in hell. What was it that Paul wrote to the Thessalonians? Give thanks in all things. All things. And don't take my word for it. Find your own affirmations and start repeating them. Pay attention to how you feel and see what happens. Call up your potent powers within. Bless you all.